Well, hello everybody, welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back. I hope you're doing fantastic out there. In this video today, we're going to talk about used solar panels that I purchased from SanTan Solar. Let's take a look. So when it comes to purchasing used solar panels, there's a lot of things that I'd like to share with you. First thing that you got to think about is what type of panel do you want? There's two major panels that you can get. There's monocrystalline and then there's polycrystalline. Both panels work very good if you have direct sunlight. Monocrystalline panels, generally speaking, are a little bit smaller. So if you're in a spot where space is limited, monocrystalline might be a better panel for you. They do cost more. Polycrystalline panels are a little bit larger, but yet they're less expensive. Now the big difference between mono and polys is direct sunlight. Polys and monos both work very good in direct sunlight, but when you start shading or getting around trees or shadows or inclement weather, that's where the polys kind of take the day off and monos tend to continue to work a little bit. They will work at a reduced rate, but they'll continue to work even in these shaded environments. So if you have wide open space, there's not going to be any trees, no shadows or stuff like that, polycrystalline panels are a good choice for that. Now, if you're going to be installing them on the roof of a travel trailer or an RV or something like that where you're going to go camping and you might be up in the woods where there could be shadows and shades with trees, monocrystalline is definitely better. Again, monocrystallines, generally speaking, for the same amount of wattage, require less of a footprint, so they're a little bit smaller. And if you are installing them on an RV and you want to get the maximum amount of watts on that rooftop up there, monocrystalline would probably be a better bet for you. Now when you buy solar panels, especially used solar panels, there's a few things that you might want to look at, and there's different categories that I like to look at solar panels at. Category 1 would be a good used solar panel that has no problems at all. It's in good working condition, there's no issues with it, and that would be what I would call a category 1 used solar panel. Category 2 solar panel would be something that has a blemish on it. A blemish could be caused by water intrusion, so the bus bars on the top, which are mainly made of copper, might be discolored. They might be a greenish color tint. If you think about the Statue of Liberty, it's a green statue because it's made out of copper. So blemished panels could have discolored bus bars, which will reduce performance slightly. They might have scratches on the glass. They might have shattered glass. Maybe somebody hit a baseball and the baseball flew and hit the glass. The glass might be cracked, but that might not affect the performance of the panel. So you're going to be looking for cosmetic things, you know, broken glass, scratches on the glass, maybe even on the aluminum sides here. They might be rubbing together going down the road on a truck or something, so they might have rub marks or wear marks, or maybe during the installation process or uninstalling the panels, they might have dropped one and the aluminum siding on the panel might be damaged or bent or have some heavy scratches or something like that on that. So that's what I would call a category 2, which would be a blemished panel. Now again, the blemished panels, if they do not have discolored bus bars, those blemished panels, as long as the cells themselves are in good condition, those blemished panels will probably perform very, very well for many years. Now the third category of used panels that you can look for are what they call cracked vinyl. That is the back sheet on the back of the panel. Sometimes it can have heavy scratches in it or cracks. And when these panels are installed here in the Southwest, where the sun is so powerful and the expansion and contraction over the years and very, very direct sunlight, very powerful rays of sun after years of time, this vinyl on the back, which is that coating on the back side, that white layer, that gets cracked. And the second that vinyl gets cracked, the watertight integrity of the panel is compromised. So the cells themselves are now compromised because that vinyl is cracked. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, because unless there's humidity in the air, moisture is not going to get into those cells through that cracked vinyl. So what a lot of people are doing is they're buying the cracked vinyl panels and they're taking white or clear silicone and they're just putting it over the cracks and then repairing the watertight integrity of the panel. Now that's okay as long as water has not entered the panel. So cracked vinyl is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not a damaged panel, it's just compromised. So in a lot of cases that I've seen, cracked vinyl panels still produce just as much power as a good used solar panel. Now the fourth type of panel that you can find used is very common. This is called snail trails. That's where you'll see little lines in the cells. It is a reaction of chemical, and these little snail trails that you'll see they look like little lines, and they'll continue to grow. Now this may or may not affect the performance of the panel in the short term, but in the long term, generally speaking, the snail trails will reduce the power that a panel can produce. Now snail trails are a telltale sign that there is actual physical damage to the cell of the panel. So this is micro cracks behind the cell, which that's why you're seeing that snail trail. There might be water intrusion, and if you buy a panel that has snail trails in the early stages, it's probably still going to perform at a slightly reduced rate, but it's probably still going to work pretty well. But over time, and I'm saying over 10 years, that snail trail is going to eventually probably pose to be a pretty serious problem. In a lot of cases, I've seen panels that had snail trails that had no performance difference in them, and then I've also seen some that lost up to about 33% of the potential of what that panel could produce. So that really depends on how old the panel is, how big that snail trail is, how many there are on each cell. You know, this panel is made of 60 cells. So if you got 1 or 2 cells down, depending on how the panel is wired, if this string of cells is in a series, it might knock out that whole string of cells. So 60 cells on a 250 watt panel, that's 4 point something watts per cell. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cells. That could be up to 24 watts of loss if these are in a series. Or it could be as little as just losing that one cell, which is only going to deduct maybe 4 watts of performance. So snail trails are something that are definitely worth looking into. They could pose a problem. You can get those panels pretty cheap. It just depends on you. I personally don't think that there is safety issues with snail trails. There could be, but I haven't seen it. So right here, this is the bus bar that I'm talking about, and you're going to be looking for discoloration. It'll be heavy discoloration. Mine has very minor discoloration, so these are in really good shape. I'm also taking a look, making sure nothing's damaged. I see everything looks pretty good. I'm also noticing that this panel is very dirty, so these are all going to need to be cleaned. But I'm looking for snail trails, which you'll see them. It'll be like a little line. And when I purchased these, I made sure that I wanted no cracked vinyl and no snail trails. Now I am seeing tiny bits of discoloration on these cells, but I don't think that that's that big of a deal, honestly. So I'm going to take my little bucket of water here and I'm going to clean all 10 of these panels up. So now that we know what to look for, I'm going to take this bucket of water. I've got my little scrubby pad, just soapy water. I've got a little sponge here and I have a little brush. I'm going to clean these panels. Once I get these panels clean, I'm going to use a multimeter after inspecting the panels, and I'm going to test for two things. I'm going to test for the open circuit voltage and the closed circuit current. That's going to give me an idea of how efficient these panels are and what kind of wattage they're producing. So let's go ahead and get started. These are dirty. As you can see, it's probably going to take me a little time to clean all 10 of these. The cleaner that I can get the glass, the more effective these panels can be. I'm looking for any kind of imperfections, because as I clean them, I can see the cells and things like that a little bit better. I'm looking for cracks in the glass. I'm looking for snail trails. I'm looking for anything that could pose to be a problem. Let's take a closer look. So I don't see any blemishes. I don't see any cracks in the glass. I do see a little bit of epoxy cracking here on the inside, but that's more of a cosmetic thing. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I don't see any snail trails. There might be a tiny snail trail forming right there, just starting. It's a little one, very small. But for the most part, this looks like a very good panel in good condition. So once I get the panel cleaned, I'm going to move it to this other spot over here. Okay, after inspecting the front of the panel, I'm going to clean and inspect the vinyl. And on this panel, there's no cracks, no scratches, no watertight integrity is broken. The vinyl looks good. I'm also going to check the wires here and make sure that these wires and MC4 connectors are in good condition, that the wires aren't damaged, cut, have any abrasion, anything like that. I'm also checking to make sure that the O-rings on the MC4 connectors are in good condition. I'm also inspecting the frames of the panel to make sure there's no damage on the frames, and this panel looks good. I'm checking all of these panels for all of these things. And there's a look at the sticker with all the specifications of these panels. 5.5 amps, 5.6 amps a second ago, and I was getting 36 volts. There's 6.6 amps. So 36 volts, I don't even have full sunlight. So at 36 volts, at 5.6 amps, that's over 200 watts. So these things are performing just fine. I'm not even in completely direct sunlight. There's cloud coverage. The sun is just peeking through the clouds. So I know that when those clouds get out of the way, I'm going to have direct sunlight and I'm going to be producing a lot more. 7 amps, 6.6, 7.4, 7.5, 7.6 amps. at 36 volts. That's pretty significant. They're performing well. So 36 volts times 7 amps, that's 252 watts. And the open circuit voltage of these is up to 37.2 volts. So I'm doing pretty good, and the amperage, closed circuit amperage, can go up to 8.87. So these panels are working just fine. So the voltage right now with cloud coverage is 33.4 volts DC. A minute ago I had a little bit of sun and they registered at 36 volts. So it appears that these panels are doing really well. We're approaching 34 volts. So I'm impressed. They're working very well. So even if we look at the math, 34 volts times 6 amps, that's 204 watts. And that's pretty good. If I take that 6 out and make it 7 amps, then we're bringing in 238 watts. And that is fantastic. These panels are definitely performing well. So when I inspect these panels, I look at the bus for discoloration. I have it in the sun here so that I can take a fine tooth comb and look at every cell. I'm looking for any blemishes, snail trails, any discoloration on the bus, any burn spots. Like right there's a very light brown spot. Not that big of a deal. Some of them will get dark in their discoloration. But I'm looking at all the cells, and then on the side of the panel, on the inside, I've had a couple that had cracked vinyl on the inside. That's mainly a cosmetic thing. It's not going to affect the performance of the panel. So this one, shoot, if you didn't know, you would think that this is a brand new panel. It's in fantastic shape. No snail trails, no cracks. This one cleaned up really well. I think this one's going to be a performer. So over here, I got my meter, and the sun, look at that, I'm bringing in 7.7 amps right now, and I'm not even under full sun. The max that these panels can produce is 8.8. So yeah, this thing's working just great. So how do you test a solar panel? Right now you can see that I have this panel covered with a blanket. So what I'll do is I'll come over here. From here I'm going to take my digital multimeter and I'm going to put it on amperage, DC amperage. I'm going to turn it on. And the reason I have the panel shaded is because I don't want any power in these lines. I've got my negative terminal here, so I'll go ahead and connect that one. Just like that. And here is my positive. And if I don't have the panel shaded, this thing is going to spark when I make that connection. So now I can unshade the panel. So I'm going to take the blanket off. That'll expose the panel to the sun. And at this point you can look at the readings right there on the multimeter, and I'm bringing in 6.9 amps. So it's working very well. Right now I'm over 7 amps. Now the short circuit amperage that this panel can produce is 8 amps. So it's doing good. But now that I've verified amperage, I want to check the voltage. So I'm going to turn the meter off. I'll leave the leads connected and I'll go from DC amps to DC volts. And on this particular meter, I got to switch this over here to volts. Now I'll turn the meter back on and we'll register the voltage of this panel. 34.96 is the DC voltage that this panel provides. Now the maximum open circuit voltage of this panel is around 37 volts. So this is doing just fine because I'm not even in full sunlight. So hopefully that helps you. For anybody out there that might be curious how you test a solar panel. Again, when you're testing amperage, it's good to shade the panel. If not, you'll get little sparks here when you make that connection when you're testing the amperages. So look at how dirty that water is, and I've changed this water twice now. These panels were a little bit dirty. Not too dirty for them to sell them, but I wanted them really clean, like brand new panels. This one here that we're looking at right now, it had a lot of tree residue, like sap, and it smelled like a tree. Kind of funny. I mean, I've heard of green energy, but never thought they'd try to convert themselves into a tree. I'm on the last one, number 10. .93 amps, 5.95, 5.98, 6 amps. So it met the 6 amp mark, and the sun is still vaguely behind clouds. So that's good. Now we'll check the voltage. .3. That's perfect. So just in case you're wondering why I have these strapped, yesterday the wind blew and it knocked one of them down. It fell face down, no damage, but yeah, that's why I have them strapped. Well, I'm finished cleaning and inspecting all of these panels. I bought 10 of them. They're 250 watt Canadian Solar polycrystalline panels. I don't have any issues. Every single one of them tested at least 35 volts and at least 6 amps. Now the weather, the sun has been coming in and out of the clouds, so those voltages and amperages that I've tested on every one of these is impressive to me. That comes out to about 210 watts per panel. So I'm very happy with the purchase that I made from SanTan Solar. Now, I've seen videos of people that have purchased used panels and they had lots of negative things to say. I don't have anything negative to say. I really don't. They do offer different panels that you can purchase. Like I mentioned earlier, you can get just used panels that don't have snail trails, don't have blemishes, and don't have cracked vinyl. People that want to save money, they'll buy a panel that has blemishes or cracked vinyl or snail trails. And I think those are the panels that I've seen where people weren't happy with their purchase. And those panels are a lot cheaper than the ones that I paid for. So these ones, I'm happy. I paid $65 a piece. No complaints here. You get what you pay for. There was 2 panels that had very, very minor snail trails, and they still checked out on voltage and amperage. And like I mentioned earlier, snail trails is something that will develop in the long term. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in SanTan Solar, I'll put a link in the description box down below. I am working on becoming an affiliate with SanTan Solar, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Please thumb up this video, share this video, and until next time, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a beautiful day. We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.